How's it been? It's been a hot minute. It has been a hot minute. Now, I don't have much to say because, I only made 2 videos. However, I made the wonderfully intelligent decision to start a brand new booktube channel just before making the decision to get my teeth fixed, which required extensive hardware in my mouth, including expanders and braces with expanders and all that wonderful, lovely stuff. To the point where I went for quite a few months unable to talk, to where I was hardly understood. So there was no making videos and content other than Bookstagram stuff where I didn't need to talk and show my face. We are wrapping up with that process. As long as everything goes the way it should, we should be wrapping up within the next 2 weeks or so. Cross our fingers that nothing happens and we can say goodbye to this entire process and be done with it. So that being said, hi, I'm back. Hello. I hope to be making regular content. If not, it's probably partially because of this, which is okay. I'm also going to be a little lispy because it's hard to speak with a bunch of plastic in your mouth, and I might sound a little spitty. I'm sorry in advance if that's the case. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I would like to start this off as a vlog, my very first vlog. And so this is just going to be a weekend vlog. I do have some weekend plans. I'm going to be going down to Detroit with my best friend. I live here in Michigan, the wonderful Mitten State, and we're going to be going to the Ford Mansion in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. She's never been. I've been there a couple times. It's absolutely beautiful. I will be able to take some pictures of the grounds, in which case I will plug them in. So that's going to be the majority of my Saturday. Sunday, my dad and I are going to go antiquing. We're going to go to a festival-esque sort of flea market in a local city here, and we're gonna see what treasures we might find because I am an avid antiquer and I absolutely love finding old stuff. You can't see behind you, but my desk is littered with just old stuff. My cat, hello, can you let me talk? Thanks. So it's going to be a busy weekend, but I am hoping to wrap up some reading, wrap up one book, and then start another at least and see what happens. Now, both of these are going to be standalones. They're not a part of any series. One of them I'm not sure you've probably not heard of. That one's going to be a little bit new. The next one I have heard a couple talk about, not as extensively. I think standalones are getting a little bit more traction these days because we want to see more of them, and we don't have very many open and very many options to us. So I'm trying to focus on a lot of standalones right now so that I can pull a bunch together and give some not really well-known recommendations within the next couple months or so. I have a nice pile so far, but I'd like to have more where I can give at least a good handful of recommendations, maybe that people just rarely heard of or haven't ever heard of. So that being said, the book that I would like to finish is going to be Never the Wind by Francesco Dimitri. Now this, I will be honest, is a complete and utter cover buy. I went to Barnes & Noble, my local Barnes & Noble here in town last week or so, just because I wander around there sometimes with no apparent direction, and I came across this and one other, which also happened to be a standalone. And they're both absolutely beautiful, and I had never heard of either one of the authors or these books. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna branch out. This is not something I would normally go with, and I'm gonna see how I like it. It revolves around a young boy who moves to their family's sort of estate. They're trying to fix it up to make it sort of into like a bed and breakfast tourist location. And he is blind. He is recently blind. He came down with a condition, I don't remember the name of it, but it is a medical condition that affected his sight, and slowly he ended up losing complete sight. So it is a non-linear time frame, at least so far as this bit that I've read so far. So I am close to the end. And there are no chapters, so this kind of, it feels very story-like because you do pick up on the fact that this is the main character telling his story from now when he's older, and he's gone back and he is telling us the story of a summer that he had. It is based in Italy, or at least fantastical historical Italy. I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't really specify and state if this is our time, our Earth Italy, or if this is more of a fantastical reimagining of Italy. It doesn't really say. And it is sort of a ghost story from what I understand. And from where I'm at right now, the wonderful part of this book so far that's really got me captivated is the description the author is able to use to convey to me what it feels like to be blind. Obviously, I'm not blind. It is one of my biggest fears. I am an artist. I obviously am a huge reader. All this back here. So becoming blind is one of my biggest fears. And we follow this young boy as he slowly becomes blind by going back in time from now to then, now to then. So it is a non-linear story. I'm talking. Hi, babe. That's Zayden. He's just gonna hang out with us. So it's because it's not broken up into different chapters, you do get this sense that this is just a continuous story that's being told to us, which is kind of nice. And they do have quite a few page breaks in between that let us know that we are switching into this is what happened in the past and this is now. And the way that this author, there have been a couple parts in here where I've been freaked out. It takes a lot to freak me out, especially in books. It does not take me a lot to freak me out in movies. I don't watch horror movies, but it doesn't take a lot to freak me out, especially in movies. In books, it takes a lot to freak me out in books. And there's been a couple parts in here that I've been a little wigged out a bit, and it's kind of because the author has the way of describing what's happening in such a way that you are also blind. You know, he is blind, you are also blind, because we're seeing this through his point of view. And so of course his point of view is darkness, is wondering and questioning and unknown, the unknown. And of course, the unknown is very scary for a lot of people. For a lot of us, the unknown is scary. Just as humans, the unknown is scary. But to have something physical and potentially paranormal be happening when you can't see it and all you know is the feeling that you've got, the sounds that you can or cannot hear, what is and isn't normal anymore based on what your life and what you're used to, and putting all that together and then never being able to see this thing or see what's happening. It's just creepy. I have goosebumps right now. It's just creepy, but it's not so creepy that I have to go, okay, I have to put this away. I can't sleep tonight. I'm very, very curious as to what really is happening here. That being that this is kind of portrayed as a ghost story is interesting to me. So I'm really excited to finish this. I am not too far away from finishing. I'm on page 176 out of 315 or so. So I am not too far away from being finished. I plan on having this done within the next day or so, depending on how much I'm able to read with everything else going on. But I will give my additional thoughts after I finish it. And the next book that I have to read is going to be a YA by Trisha Levenseller, and that is Warrior of the Wild. I have not heard very much about this. I think the only person I actually have heard talk about this in any way is going to be Elle from Elliot Brooks. And I haven't really heard her talk too much about it. It's been in a couple of her last videos, but I don't really know too much about this at all. Besides, I believe it follows a young girl who is banished. She's trained her life to be a warrior and lead her village, but when her coming of age trial is sabotaged and she fails the test, her father banishes her to the monster-filled wilderness with an impossible quest. To win back her honor, she must kill the oppressive god who claims tribute from the villages each year or die trying. I had heard Elle talk about it. It sounded really interesting. I'm all for additional, like I said, additional standalones. I do steer away from YA a little bit more than I used to. I just don't like a lot of the tropes that are consistently used in YA, and my attention span I need something a little deeper than YA usually offers. So I'm hoping this is a good one. I'm hoping this is entertaining. I'm hoping it's a good standalone option that I can recommend to people. It shouldn't take too long to get through. Again, this one's pretty short, 330 pages, so that shouldn't take long at all. One of the things I will mention is that the audiobooks that I am currently listening to, and I typically listen to my audiobooks when I'm at work because I sit at a desk all day and I'm able to plug in my headphones and still get my work done. I'm very blessed in that resort. But I have started part 1 of Sandman. I'm obsessed. I'm gonna say it right now. I'm obsessed. I have never read the graphic novels. They were never introduced to me. I didn't even know there were graphic novels for Sandman until the audio adaptation, that the most recent one, came out and it kind of blew up in popularity. Did not know they existed. The audio came out. I had no idea what the Sandman story was. I'm not really a DC fan. I'm just not. So I had no background. I had no background when it came to Sandman. I tried the audiobook and it was just a little too episodic and choppy for me. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who was who. I DNF'd the audiobook. The Netflix adaptation, as we know, has come out. It's fantastic. I binged it. I love every single piece of it. And now, of course, I am hyper-focused on Sandman. So I have re-downloaded the audio. I restarted that. I am absolutely adoring it. But I've also listened to at least half of it already. And having just watched the Netflix adaptation, I'm kind of looking for something a little new as well. I'm still really focused on Sandman. I just purchased the first omnibus, volume 1, which is graphic novels volume 1 through 20. The Barnes & Noble Special Edition. This beautiful beast of a book. It's absolutely huge. I mean, it's volumes 1 through 20, so it's going to be really large. But this is Barnes & Noble's edition. The only thing I hate about it is, of course, we have this really ugly Netflix sticker on it. But of course, that's just how it's going to be because that's what we have to live with as book lovers. But I could not say no to this beautiful cover. So this is going to be on my TBR very shortly. Because I have never actually experienced the comics. And I'm really, really excited for this. This might be something that I also pick up in this reading blog this weekend because it's going to go by quick. I'm already into the story when it comes to the Netflix adaptation and listening to the audiobook right now. So being able to kind of do all 3 of those at once, I think is going to be really, really, really fascinating to see and hear and experience all the differences and all the similarities between the 3. So this might be something else that I pick up as well. We will see. Other than that, I have started the audiobook of Dark Rise. Now, I do not have this one physical, so I do have a picture that's going to pop up right here. And this one is kind of new to me. It's not really known very well. I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 people talk about it. And so far I'm enjoying it. I think I'm on chapter 6 or so. I'm not sure what the percentage is in the audio, but I'm pretty sure I'm on chapter 6 or chapter 7. And we're following a young boy who seems to have some sort of magical abilities. I'm not really sure. And he is integrating himself, I believe, in this organization called the Stewards. And they seem to be these people who are fighting against this evil that is coming back into the world. That's pretty much all I know about it. I have no more experience with what else is going to be involved in this book or not. I'm trying to go in a little blind, other than the bare minimum of what I've heard other people say, that it's a pretty fantastic story. So those ones I might not touch because they are audio, and like I said, I typically use those at work, so we will see on these physical reads what I get to. Good morning, friends. I just pulled into the Ford house. I'm waiting for my best friend and her husband, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I haven't been here in years. And it's an absolutely beautiful place. I'm really excited to show some pictures and video for you, or to you. So, here we go.
Started building in 1926 and the family moved in 1928. It was designed by Albert Kahn.
Y'all, my car wouldn't start. We went through our whole tour. It was wonderful. The house is beautiful. You've either already seen pictures or you will see pictures shortly. And we get ready to go home. We were going to go out to lunch and then head home. This is about an hour and 40 minutes away from my house. And my car wouldn't start. An hour and 40 minutes away from my house, my car won't start. Do I have jumper cables? Nope. Didn't bring them with me. Awesome. Thank goodness for my best friend there and her husband. They are amazing. So we went up to get some jumper cables. We come back, we jump my car. We went to lunch first just to get that over with because we were hungry. And it finally jumped and it was fine. And then it was an hour and 40 minutes drive home through construction and detours, freaking out that my car is going to start sputtering and stop in the middle of the highway. Yeah. So I planned on listening to an audiobook on the way home, but being that my car wouldn't start, I was a little nervous to have any sort of electrical anything happening in my car. So I didn't get any audiobook listening done today, but that's okay. I am hoping to wrap up Never the Wind and hoping to start the Warrior of the Wild, I think it was, or potentially Sandman, because I'm really getting anxious to pick up another Sandman story. And I was going to listen to Sandman on the way back home, which didn't happen. So feeling a little Sandman jittery. I want some more. Update time. I just finished Never the Wind, and it's very different than what I would typically read. I give it a 3 stars, but it's odd because I enjoyed what I was reading. I liked what I was reading. I mean, it was enjoyable, but it wasn't anything that I was super, super, super excited to get back to at any time. But I still enjoyed what I read and enjoyed the story. It was more of a character-focused sort of narration on what it's like to experience a world where you used to be able to see and now everything is taken away from you. All that's taken away. And it explores an aspect of the supernatural that I thought was kind of odd. It wasn't really explained very well. I don't think it was meant to be completely understood. I got a cat here. But that being said, like I had mentioned at some point before, the ability for the author to explain these supernatural things that are happening to someone as a reader who is not blind is kind of fascinating, because you never get to see what this thing is. You never get to
experience this thing in any way other than through the experience of someone who's blind. And so you're experiencing it through all these different senses, except for the visual sense, sight. We never see it. At one point, there's a photograph taken, and our main character thinks that he was able to take a picture of whatever this thing is, and he's told at one point that it's this thing, and then he's told at another point that it's not that thing at all, that it's actually this. But the experience that we have with this supernatural entity is not what is shown in the photograph, what we're told is in the photograph. So it's interesting having this thing that kind of brings out this fear and uneasiness and whatnot based on the descriptions that were given. We never see it. We never see it once. So that was quite interesting to experience. Like I said, it was very odd. It was definitely not something that I would typically read. So it's probably why my enjoyment wasn't such. It wasn't like, okay, I really want to get back to this book. It wasn't anything like that for me. But as I was reading it, I was enjoying it, and I think I just read the last 100 pages or so pretty quickly. So, I mean, all in all, it wasn't bad. I gave it a 3 stars. So, on to the next one.
I think I want that.
It's pretty cool.
That's a cool piece.
So, update. I have started Warrior of the Wild, and I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with it. I have come to the determination that younger YA probably just isn't for me anymore. This isn't a bad book. It's not a bad book. It's not a badly or poorly written book in any way, shape, or form. But at this point in my life, and at this point in my reading, and what I like to read and what I enjoy reading, I think it's on a little bit more of the younger side for my tastes. I'm going to try to give it maybe another 30 pages or so and see if maybe it kind of grows up a little bit. I don't want that to sound bad or mean, because it's not a poorly written book. It's not a bad book. And I know that if I were to have read this when I was younger, in high school probably, I more than likely would have loved this book. I just think it's on a little young side for me. So with that, I think I'm going to give another 50 pages, see how I feel, and go from there. I'll check back in the next 50 pages or so, and we'll just go from there. Ugh. You'll have to forgive the post-shower look. It's okay. Real talk, it's moments like these in fantasy genre history that I am so sad and slightly frustrated, but just mostly sad that I'm the only lover of fantasy and reader in my family. I was never introduced to Sandman as a comic. I never knew that it existed. No one in my life was a nerd like I was, who was into everything fantasy and fantastical like I was. No one. Editing Casey here, just to specify that by no one, I mean no one in my family. My best friend and I absolutely were extremely involved in fantasy and reading and everything that entailed, video games and whatnot. But we kind of steered toward manga, and were introduced to manga, and we're never really introduced to comics. At least I wasn't. I don't know necessarily about her. I know she reads some now, but I wasn't introduced to comics. So that's just a little bit of a clarification that it was really no one in my family, my immediate family, but my best friend was definitely all the way there with me in the whole fantasy
aspect. Cat. It was me. I was that weirdo. I was the weirdo who brought books to school every day and read in the lunch line and read between classes and came to school early and sat in front of her first hour class to read a book and talk to her best friend about books. That was me. That was me and only me. And I wish so badly that I had been able to get into Sandman when I was younger, like so many people, but I never had that opportunity. I was never introduced to it. I first heard about Sandman when the Audible adaptation came out. That was the first time I ever heard about it. They had the Audible book trailer. It looked fantastic. It looked amazing. I got it immediately, and I couldn't connect to it. It felt so disjointed. I didn't have any history with it. I didn't know what it was or what was going on. I knew nothing, and I felt so detached. I got through the first half of part 1, and I quit. I DNF'd it. I had no intentions of coming back to it. And then the Netflix trailer started coming out, and I thought, okay, this is something that I can get attached to. I love how this sounds and how this looks. I think I need to give this another shot. Graphic novels then, of course, pop in. Hey, did you know this was done by a done as a graphic novel? I don't know, maybe vaguely, maybe I heard that somewhere, but I never read them. I was never introduced to them. We should check them out. I said, okay, well, I'll watch the Netflix first. Watched it. One of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Fell completely in love with it. Went out and immediately got the Audible book again. Bought the first Barnes & Noble edition omnibus, as we know. And I'm currently working my way through the omnibus as I'm listening to the audiobook. Fantastic. If anybody knows of any links online of where I could read the comics for free, please let me know. I will absolutely read them, and then I will go out and buy the omnibus anyways to have for my collection. The whole point being is I wish so badly I was able to really connect to the old school fans of this series, because I am a new fan coming into it. I am absolutely a new baby fan coming into it, but I love it so much. It's so rich. It's so meaningful and impactful. And I mean, and the word philosophical is going to get thrown out a lot, obviously, when talking about these characters, but almost every single episode brought some sort of emotion, different emotions, but some sort of emotion that was extremely powerful. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I shed at least one tear in some of these episodes, if not all of them, to some extent, for some reason. Even Fiddler's Green. I just remember thinking before I knew who he was, I wish I could see more of this character. I really like this character. And then you find out who he is, and some of the things that he says, they're so poetic and they're so beautiful. And just the short amount of time that we got to see him, I was in love. I was absolutely in love, and I want more. I just want more. I want more of all of it, of everything. I want more. And I'm sad that I'm just starting now. That being said, even though I am just starting now, I am thankful that all of this is happening now. I'm thankful that we're getting this adaptation that is able to do what it's doing as well as it's doing it because of the technology that we have available to us. So I'm very thankful for that. I have a whole thank you letter in my head that I want to give to Tom as Dream, just to thank him for the passion that he brought to this character. And, you know, growing up, I've never been ashamed to be a fan of fantasy. I have never been ashamed of that. I have never hid the books that I've read or tried to tone down or de-genre-tize the books that I read growing up because I was ashamed of what people would think about those books. I was never, ever ashamed in that aspect of my love for fantasy. There's always been some sort of stigma that basically those of us who read fantasy are not reading real literature. Those of us who are reading fantasy are not as intelligent as those who read memoirs of historical figures, or history books of this war, that war, or science, philosophical books here, and there. That we're not as intelligent as people who prefer to read those in their spare time. I think most people who enjoy fantasy and who love it as much as I do, and as much as I'm sure we all do, have met or experienced something to that effect. And I feel that the cast of this show and Neil Gaiman himself and everybody involved has brought to the big screen a fantasy story that even people who aren't big into fantasy can connect with. I have a friend in Scotland who doesn't do fantasy. She's just not able to connect her very logical brain to a very fantastical setting or genre or story. And for her, the things that are fantastical, that make fantasy, that the anything is possible, because it's not based in reality, her brain says, well, this isn't possible. And that's completely justified. That's how her brain works. And she's really enjoying the show so far. And she says, this might be my introduction into fantasy. If I'm really enjoying this, I'm going to try to look for some things that might be like this. This could be an introduction to fantasy for me, which is amazing. That's amazing. And to be able to bring people into this genre who may have wanted to experience this genre, but whose brains maybe don't work that way, or they don't necessarily get as much enjoyment out of it, which is completely fine. But I think it's a testament to this cast that it's brought people in to enjoy fantasy that may not have before, or allowed them to look at it a bit differently, look at it a bit more closely to how it can affect us as humans, as people. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. I've been watching at least 1 or 2 episodes every single night since it came out, rewatching it over and over. I'm obsessed. So I didn't get much reading done this week. That's a long story to end up with. I didn't get much reading done this week, aside from the few chapters of Sandman that I read in the graphic novel while listening to the audiobook. This week the majority has been Sandman. And we just got episode 11 released today, which was fantastic and a wonderful surprise to come home to and see that notification on Twitter that there was another episode that dropped. So good on ya, Gaiman and Netflix. I like what you did there. So all that being said, I did decide to continue with Warrior of the Wild. I donate plasma twice a week, and when you're sitting in a chair with a needle in your arm for an hour and a half, depending, you don't really want something that's going to take a lot of thought and effort. So something light and young and very, very simple and easy to get through is probably one of the best decisions that you can choose if you're going to take a book to read with you. So while I still stand by what I said before, that this is a very young YA, a little bit younger than I really like anymore, it is enjoyable or entertaining at least enough to continue on. I find this probably would be a wonderful book for young fantasy readers who are either just getting into fantasy or who are just looking for something that's just really simple and has a lot of fantastical elements, but is a quick, easy read with a strong female protagonist. So there is that. But I decided I will continue this. The one thing that I have, excuse me while I go out of frame, is I did pick up this book when I picked up Never the Wind, and this is Aspects by John Ford. And Neil Gaiman wrote the introduction to this, and so that kind of caught my eye, caught my attention. Honestly, I haven't read a single thing by Neil Gaiman outside of what I read of Sandman and listened to of Sandman. So I'm a little bit behind on all that. So we're going to catch up on a few things. I have Neverwhere on order right now, coming from paperbackswap.com. Wonderful website. You should check it out. And Neil didn't write this. He did not finish this. John Ford unfortunately did pass before he was able to finish this book. But Neil Gaiman was a very close friend of John Ford's and received the different parts of this book as he wrote it. And the introduction that he wrote for this book was really, really touching, and that got me really excited to read this. So I'm going to work my way
through this a little bit at a time. There's only like 8 or 9 chapters or parts to this book, and they're humongous. So I'm someone who likes to stop at the end of chapters, so that's gonna be a little interesting. I'm only on about page 25 or so. I'm not very far in, but so far I really enjoy it, and I am looking forward to seeing what this is about, since there is no synopsis and it's really difficult to find one, honestly, which is odd. So I really don't know what to expect, which I think is going to be fun. Other than that, I plan on working through a couple more standalones. I'm not going to do another vlog quite yet, because I do have a few things going on this weekend that are going to take away from my reading time, and I don't want to fill it with a bunch of filler stuff again. And I would like to have a book reading vlog for a booktube video. That would make sense. So next video, I'm not sure when that will go up, but it probably will not be another vlog, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for checking in. I hope to see you in another video sometime soon. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.